from the Harlan Ford Studios in downtown Okmulgee. You're listening to KOKL, Okmulgee, Oklahoma on 106.3 FM and 1240 AM.
SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkidos, Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Hedges, Wedges. Welcome to our program here again on this kind of chilly fall morning. Ouch, it seems like the cold weather is right here. It's been pretty brisk for the past couple of days. We hope that you and yours are staying warm and have some wonderful warm plans for the holiday. What we'd like to do today is talk about a couple of things. First one involving the census, counting Native American people around the nation. And in the second section, we will be talking to one of the folks who tried out for the big Hollywood movie about the Osages. That one is, where are we? Killers of the Flower Moon. And have been looking for cast members. So stay with us here. We must have an interesting program. Well, let's get on with it. Good morning. This is Gary. Is this Ms. Alexander? Well, let's see if we got them all plugged in correctly. Hello. Don't you just love it when you have fun stuff like this? Okay, let's see what we got here. Hello, Ms. Alexander. Ms. Alexander, are you with us? Hold on, folks. Well, we're having all kinds of fun here this morning, folks. Let me try this one again. Miss Alexander?
Yes.
Hi there. Sorry for fumbling my fingers and on all these buttons here this morning. It's something I've done a lot, but occasionally you foul it up. And that moment, 2 moments of silence, was brought to you by the Mvskoke Creek Nation. Okay.
No worries.
Yeah, now, first of all, we're looking at the 2020 census and the ambitious plan to count as many Native Americans and Alaska Native people as can be reached and contacted and have them respond. First of all, I guess let me ask you what your mission is, so to speak, in making this enumeration.
Well, our mission, of course, is to count everybody. Our tagline is to count everybody once, only once, and in the right place. With that being said, we have started early this decade in reaching out to tribal governments about the 2020 census. We started out in 2015, 2016 based on recommendations from last decade to go out and consult with tribes about the decennial census. So back in 15 and 16, we conducted a series of tribal consultations nationwide and up in Alaska. 17 formal tribal consultation meetings were held. There were a lot of operations that were not even developed yet, but we did go out and talk to the tribes about geography, about recruitment, about the coding and classification, about our partnership program. So there are things that were rolling down the line, and geography. Geography is a big piece as well. So my office I work under the Intergovernmental Affairs Office at the Census Bureau, and I've been here since 2005 at headquarters. I'm originally from Oklahoma. I'm a member of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, and I worked with the U.S. Census Bureau out of the Kansas City regional office back for the 2000 census. This is going to be my third decennial census. I was hired to work with the tribes in the state of Oklahoma and getting them counted for 2000. It was all brand new to me, learning the census acronyms and the operations. And I worked, back then we had 12 regional offices, now we have 6. And one of my goals was to make sure, I looked at the 1990 map, and there were several tribes that were not on the map of Oklahoma. So my goal and mission back in 2000 was to make sure that our tribes in Oklahoma were counted and also had their geography delineated for census so that they could get their data. So me and a Kansas City geographer went to each tribal office, talked to the planners. If they had a geographer, we looked at their maps, and what we created was what they call now is the Oklahoma Tribal Statistical Area Program. And that's where, if you look at I don't know if you've ever seen one of our census maps, but for the state of Oklahoma, the tribes are delineated with an OTSA delineation, all with the exception of the Osage. They actually have a reservation. So with that in mind, my goal back then was to make sure that our tribes in Oklahoma were on the map and that they got the data that they needed. Moving forward, I was just temporarily recruited for the decennial, and as I'll further talk about, we're really highly recruiting right now. And I was one of those people that was recruited and hired as a partnership specialist. We do have partnership specialists right now on the ground working with the tribes in Oklahoma. And they're trying to reach out and making sure that the tribes are having complete count committees, working with the tribal government liaisons. We ask all the tribes to appoint a liaison for each tribe that will work with our census staff so that they get the information that they need regarding any outreach materials, maps, data, anything. The Census Bureau is the largest statistical agency, and we provide data free to everybody. People just don't know that. It's like, if you want us to do a workshop, we'll come to you. We'll go online and we'll walk you through the data. As you know, our tables are very complex and detailed. So we got a dedicated staff, what we call data dissemination specialists, that work with everybody, and any kind of data that any needs that you may have, they'll get online and work with you, or they'll come to you. I'll just stop right there.
Let me jump in here, and let's ask you about some of that data. First of all, you got an incredibly ambitious task ahead of you, but do you have at hand the numbers of Native American people and Alaska Natives in the country, and how about Oklahoma?
Well, I prior to this call, I did pull up. We have an app online. It's called My Tribal Area, and it's really simple. You can click on. You can Google it, www.mytribalarea.gov, and it'll pull up this app, and it will show you an area where you can either pull down by state, and then within the state you can pull up the actual geography for the tribe. So I went in just prior to this call, and I pulled up the creek, what we call the OTSA, which is what I mentioned a while ago. And there's two geographies. There's the Creek and the Creek Seminole OTSAs. And for that particular app, Decennial collects just the population counts every 10 years, and the American Community Survey is the detailed data that tribes use for federal programming. So with the My Tribal Area, I showed where, and it's a 5-year estimate. We conduct this survey every day, every year. We collect information nationwide. There's a sample that goes on. And for this particular area, for the 2013-2017 5-year estimates for the Creek OTSAs, it shows a population count of 786,729 people in that area, that particular jurisdiction. But for particular, like American Indian alone, it was 57,235. So that's the particular specifics for the Creek Nation itself. For the Creek Seminole OTSA, it just showed a 2,064 population count, and for the American Indian, it was 441. And as you know, there's margins of errors with all of these estimates. So if you go online and look at it, you'll see to the right the margin of error for these population estimates.
Right. The 461 number there reminds me of the people who show up for wild onion dinner. I mean, it seems incredibly low. Now, let me ask you to backtrack again, the count again for Mvskoke Creek.
For right now, it's currently for 57,235. Is what we show for the ACS 5-year estimate right now. And that's based out of the 2013 to 2017 time frame.
Okay, and we've got significantly more people who are registered as Mvskoke Creek citizens, so there's quite a difference there. What happens there? Can you explain that?
So what you could do also is go to our other application that shows the population count. Now, this is just based on ACS estimates. We got another area called mycensus.gov, I think, is the app that you use to pull the estimates. I'll have to get that correct title for you because we're switching over. We used to have American Fact Finder, but we're switching over to, I think it's census.gov. Okay, thank you. So that's where you would pull up the information for the tribe nationwide. So this OTSA is just specific to Oklahoma, but you could go to that website and pull up nationwide, and it would show all the Mvskoke Creeks living everywhere. I mean, we've got folks like here, I live here in Maryland, so I could pull up information on the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes, and it would show nationwide that number of who actually reported that they were affiliated as a Cheyenne Arapaho.
So we're talking about including people, Mvskoke Creeks who live like in California or Tennessee, something like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a nationwide number.
Let me ask you to explain OTSA. What is that?
That's called the Oklahoma Tribal Statistical Area, and that's what I mentioned before when I started work for the Kansas City region, where I wanted to make sure that our tribes in the state were counted and, were on the map, so to speak. So what we did is we went to every tribe, we sat down with them, we had group meetings, and we looked at their actual, what they called formal reservations is what the OTSAs are. So we sat and discussed with the tribes their actual boundaries, got those corrected, and then we also talked about having joint use areas. As you know, some of the areas in Oklahoma have joint use areas like WCD, Wichita, Caddo, Delaware. So they have a joint, what we call OTSA. So back before 2000, we went and talked to the tribes, and they were in agreement with this new delineation, and that's something that's never done with any other state, with any other tribe. So that's something that was kind of new and special for Oklahoma.
When you start planning these decennial counts, enumerations, that's got to be a monstrous job. Now, I think we've probably all heard that there was complaints about a serious undercount of Native American people, but I would assume that would be happening for several reasons. First of all, a lot of our folks here in this area are living in rural areas, and if you don't know where it is, you may not ever find it or find your way back.
Correct.
But now, how do you all challenge the geographic challenges, the finding people out there in the hills?
Well, we just finished a major operation called address canvassing, and that's where we send folks out to actually look at the new housing units or new housing additions that have popped up over the 10 years, I guess you could say. So we have folks out there that were updating the maps so that everything is in alignment. Whenever we start mailing out those questionnaires, we want to have the correct address to where that new residence or that new apartment complex may have risen up since the last decennial. So we do an address canvassing operation prior to 2020, and then we have several different types of what we call enumeration, and that's how we collect the data. For Oklahoma and nationwide, it's going to be based on self-response. This is the first time we've ever did a census online. We talked about doing it in 2010, but there was a lot of safeguards and data that was a major issue and concern for us. So we did a lot of research and testing in between the decennials on collecting that data and making sure that it was safeguarded. As you know, as you hear every day, there's companies that get their data, compromised. So
that's a pleasant word for it, yeah.
Excuse me. So what were we talking about? We were talking about, the enumeration. So for Oklahoma, it's mainly self-response. We're hoping that folks will get online, use their smartphone, or we also have they can actually fill out a paper questionnaire, mail it back in, or they can actually call a toll-free number and talk to somebody and get that information verified. And even if they see people walking the neighborhoods that they don't know, if they come up to the house with a census ID, if they want to call that phone number just to verify, they can do that as well.
Now, for people who live in those rural areas, do you send people out in a four-wheeler or some method of getting there to their homes back in the hills?
Correct. That's under our what we call our update leave operation, and it's designed to occur in areas where the majority of the housing units either do not have mail delivered to their physical location of the housing unit, or the mail delivery for the housing unit cannot be verified. That's those that do not have city-style addresses. They don't receive mail through the city-style addresses. They receive mail at a post office box or at drop points, and they have high concentrations of seasonally vacant houses. You have those certain areas of the country, you'll have what you call those winter birds, I guess, summer birds that go in and out.
Snowbirds?
Snowbirds, yes. So that update leave operation is where somebody will actually come to the door and they'll leave a packet, and it'll have information in that packet where you can get online, or you can have the toll-free number, and they'll have actual questionnaire. If that person does not fill out that information within a certain time frame, then what we do is we send a person out to the door to collect that information, and that's under our non-response follow-up, where we hire people to go out, and we try to hire locally, of course, because folks know that their area better than we do. So we try to recruit folks that live in that area to do the enumeration. And
they will also know their communities too, right?
Correct.
Mrs. Jones lives way up at the end of this road, and da-da-da. Here's a strange question now. Walking up to a house like that, I would be extremely careful. Sometimes you see 2 or 3 of those mean old Indian dogs hanging around saying, I know you're not coming to this door. So do you train people for those situations?
Well, definitely, especially if you talk about rural areas like, I'm just thinking of Navajo Nation. We have folks that are way out in the middle of, you would say, kind of nowhere, that have to go out and collect that information. But that's where it's real important for our partnership specialists that we hire to work with the tribal government. And with any survey, like with American Community Survey, our protocol is to notify the tribe that we are coming out on their land and that we're going to be collecting information. That's a high priority for the Census Bureau. We just don't go out and walk out and start doing information without notifying the government.
Right. Now, how about linguistics? If hiring a community member would get you closer to understanding a language, but are there any formal efforts to incorporate that topic into your training?
You mean like learning, like, for instance, this area is highly influenced of, like, only Navajo talking?
Yeah. And I know, like, my time in Alaska, I noticed that villages out in the bush have a preponderance of the use of their native languages. So do you make any adjustments for that kind of thing?
Most definitely. We definitely try to hire those bilingual folks that know the village. And remote Alaska is a completely different operation than what we do in the lower 48. The remote Alaska operation kicks off before, on January 21st. In fact, we're going to be kicking off at Tooksik Bay. It's a little island off of the west coast of Alaska. So with that in mind, since we've been doing this operation for 2 or 3 decennials now, the Census Bureau knows, how to conduct that operation, and it's going, actually, we're hiring folks to go to the door to collect that information out in the remote areas.
And you're going to be a lot of airplane transportation then.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think you can hire too many dog sleds, but I'm sure you can. Some of those guys could probably use the books. Now, as we look at the kind of the history between the federal government and Native American people, a lot of it isn't very good, and people to this day still, harbor complaints about the U.S. government and the feds, doing things that they shouldn't be. But, in spite of people's, not trusting the government and having some sort of negative thought, you're trying to overcome that. And how do you deal with people who just say, well, I'm not telling Uncle Sam nothing,
Right. We have those areas not only on the reservation, but just nationwide along the border. We have some folks there that are kind of in the closed compound areas that we're aware of. And we just try to get information and try to hire within. But if we can't collect that information, what we try to do is a proxy. We try to go out and talk to the folks that live in the area to give us an idea who's living in that housing unit, how many people are living there, just to try to get a number.
And then hopefully you can kind of start off with some cordial relationships and get the information you need, right?
Correct. And since the 1990 census, the tribes have now become, very aware of how important the census is, for their own planning purposes. We have some tribes that actually use the data very well to delineate their boundary areas. Like, I'm just thinking of Navajo again. They have chapters, so they figure out how many folks are living in their chapter, so it helps them with their voting and their legislative government.
Now, I know we touched this at the beginning of our discussion, but I think we need to focus once more on why this is such an important task, why this information is so vital to operations of tribal governments. I mean, on programs where they qualify, they would really need these kind of numbers to build their case, right?
Correct. I mean, the tribes, as you know, they have funding for their programs from federal agencies like HUD for native housing. You got transportation issues. Every tribe has, a transportation department that depends on census numbers. So our statistics that the tribes use is what they send over to the federal agency for federal funding. And I just heard this past week that we were quoting $675 billion annually that is given to the federal agencies for these programs, but now that has up to $1.5 trillion. So that's a big increase.
Oh, I would say so. And then tribes would qualify for a share of that depending on the numbers that they serve.
Correct. We're always having that issue of the multi-generation, multi-household on American Indian reservations. And we have a good working relationship with the tribal Indian housing authorities. And so making sure they let their folks know, hey, if there's 2 or 3 families living in this unit, feel free to please answer that census survey. It's not going to affect your housing because we need to know if we have overcrowded, as you know we all do on most reservations. That just shows the picture and the count to further their message of that more funding needs to go for tribal housing.
You, I guess, mentioned a topic that I think is really important. People who might still distrust the federal government and, say, well, if they know we're living here, what else do they know? Or how can they use this against us? Or, what do you need to know this for, kind of thing. A really negative attitude toward this enumeration. Now, housing, of course, most of us are familiar with families or community members that have several families living under one roof.
Uh-huh.
And so is there anything for them to fear in making the census participation happen?
You mean the multi-general or multi-household?
Yeah, that or, people who just don't trust the government in general.
Well, that's why we ask our tribal leaders to get the word out to their tribal citizens. Hey, there are folks that are going to be coming to take the census. If you don't want somebody come knocking at the door for an interview, please, fill out that questionnaire, mail it back in, get on the telephone, submit your information. All of your information is going to be confidential. We have an oath here at Census Bureau that, we take very seriously, that we will not report anybody's personal information. So it's real vital, and then for the tribes to actually appoint somebody within their tribe that's working with our staff to hire locally, that's the main goal. And we saw a success with that last decennial of that partnership of working with the tribal governments and working with their staff and having them open up their offices for recruitment or testing or just whatever, outreach if they wanted to come in and have help filling out the questionnaire. We have tribal offices that are going to open up their tribal colleges, their libraries. We're hoping to work with Indian Health Service and possibly BIA to open up their offices as well to designate a computer if they want to come in around Census Day to fill out that questionnaire, and hopefully they'll have somebody there to help them do that.
Over the past year or so, there has been a lot of controversy about a question of citizenship. American citizenship. If somebody wanted to add a question, are you a U.S. citizen? And others rejected it and saying, no, it's none of your darn business and that sort of thing. Now, will this count even look at that area? Is there something there that pertains to that particular question?
No, the citizenship question is not going to be on the 2020 questionnaire. The judge ruled on that this past summer. As you know, there was a lot of filing regarding that questionnaire, a lot of folks that didn't want it on the questionnaire, and then, the agency that put that in. So, long story short, no, there's not going to be a citizenship question on the questionnaire. I did some observations on some focus groups regarding the 2020, and that came out to the group that I was listening to. Well, that was one of the questions. What do you think about the citizenship question? I said, well, it doesn't pertain to me. We are the first citizens. We've always been here, So that didn't affect, the American Indian Alaska Native group at all.
Right. We were citizens before there was an America.
Yes.
Now, as the end of 2019 draws quite near, where do you go from this point? I guess what stage are you at in preparing this count, and when do you officially launch it?
Like I said, we're going to do our first enumeration event in Tooksik Bay, Alaska on January 21st. After that, the lower 48 Census Day is April 1. Everybody will get a postcard and a questionnaire stating that the census is coming, probably mid-March. We encourage folks to go online, like I said, or get on the phone. fill out the paper questionnaire, send it back in. If that's not done, then somebody will come out and do a follow-up to that household. We are, as an agency, we're required to deliver the population counts to the president at the end of this year. And then we are also required to have our redistricting data by the end of March, so that all the states will know if they lost or gained a district.
Another question popped into my head as you were responding there. We've been talking about a focus primarily in native land areas, on reservations, and down here in Oklahoma and sovereign tribal districts, I guess. But what about Native people in urban areas? Is there some sort of special provision or focus that you might have come up with to include them?
Well, we have a national partnership program, and we are working with national organizations, those that are, most of them seem to be, located in the large urban areas. As you know, 84% of the American Indian Alaska Native population live in urban areas. So it's real critical that we have these partners that are going to be sending out information on their websites, in their flyers, any kind of dissemination if they walk into their organization to do that outreach for us. So we're looking forward. There's almost 150 national American Indian Alaska Native organizations that are going to be helping us with that outreach.
Okay. Now let's wrap this up. Is there anything else that you'd care to mention that's really important or that we haven't touched on?
I just want to kind of brief you on the question on the 2020 census question on race. Folks are going to be getting this questionnaire. There's a race category that's designated for the American Indian Alaska Native. It says print name of enrolled or principal tribe, and we give examples. This is the first time, based on research, we've actually providing examples of what they can put in. And please don't limit yourself on the boxes. There's 33 boxes that they can fill out the information, but we are capturing up to 6 tribes or groups. So I'm telling people to write in the box, write on top, write on the side, and we will code and classify those 6, if it's up to 6 responses. On the Internet, it's different. They can type in up to 200 characters, so it's a little more.
Right, and someone with a multi-tribal background could have a lot of fun with that one. The last thing I guess I should ask you, these things keep popping into my head. Does it make any difference if the tribe is federally recognized or non-federally recognized?
We have a huge list. Our population division has been collecting information. When we went out and did consultations, we asked the tribes for any new names. Some tribes, as you know, have switched over to their actual Indian name, like Okewingay was once a Pueblo tribe. I can't remember the name that they had, but they went to their Indian name. So we are always asking tribes and have been collecting information. I think we're going to go up until, I want to say, February of 2020, but we've been getting information from the tribes on their specific name that they want to go by. But we collect federally recognized, we collect state recognized, and we collect tribes that are not recognized. As you know, there's a lot of tribes out there that are trying to get the status. So we do have information on, we have a list of those as well.
Okay. Ms. Alexander, we're going to have to move on with our program here, but is there a final thought? Or even better, is there a way to contact you or your office if anyone has any questions?
Sure, you can contact me at dee.a.alexander@census.gov.
Okay.
And I appreciate you calling us and getting on your show today. I'm always here for future interviews, so please keep that in mind, and please keep the census going every month now till 2020.
Okay, we'd be happy to do that, and I can just almost bet that you'll be hearing from me again. Okay, Dee Alexander with U.S. Census Bureau, and you're the tribal liaison, correct?
I'm the Tribal Affairs Coordinator.
Okay, thank you for fixing that for me. And once again, apologies for the 2 minutes of silence at the top of the show. And we want to thank you, and we will be speaking with you again, ma'am.
One last plug.
Sir.
Folks out there, go to 2020census.gov/jobs, and we're looking to we're looking to hire 500,000 people.
Ooh.
We're recruiting like 2.3 million, and we're only at little over a million now that has been recruited. So we definitely want to increase that number of recruiting.
Sure. Okay. Well, we'll put the word out there and see what we can do for you.
Thank you.
This is a pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Five.
Okay. That was Dee Alexander with the U.S. Census Bureau. And we're going to take a short pause here, and we'll be back with Erica Harjo talking about what it was like to audition for a big Hollywood movie happening here in Oklahoma. So please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Who am I? Am I Native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240thebrew.com if you're online, and 106.3 FM and 1240 AM here in the beautiful city of Okmulgee. Okay, joining us in the studios now is Erica Harjo. She has recently joined the crowd that auditioned for a big Hollywood movie about our native people here. Welcome, Ms. Harjo. We appreciate you making time for us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, keep talking while I adjust your mic here.
Okay. What do you want me to say?
Maybe a little bit about where you're from and.
Okay. Well, I'm from here in Okmulgee. I am a Creek citizen. I'm a member of the Thopoloko Tribal Town. My clan is Deer. And I have 2 girls.
Okay. All right, well, we've got you fixed up here, I think. First of all, you were among the crowd that showed up for this audition. Killers of the Flower Moon is a story of the Osage people who were murdered during the big oil boom.
Right.
And the families and the consequences of what happened to them and on and on. I am personally pleased that the bigwigs in Hollywood would take on a subject like this, and it starts getting past the beads and feathers and into what's really part of our history. Now, Erica, did you have a particular part or anything in mind when you showed up for this audition?
No, I just went to see if I could even get a part or even just as an extra. And so whenever I got there, whenever I actually showed up, I was thinking, because of the crowd, I was thinking, I'll just settle for an extra, as an extra.
Stand around in the background and wrapped in a blanket. Gosh, I think half of the parts that ever been filled by Indians have been like that. And was this ever like part of your career goals? I mean, did you ever think about being in the movie?
I never thought about being in a movie. It wasn't anything that I've ever, even as a little kid, there was all kinds of stuff I wanted to be growing up, I could do that, but being in movies or anything was never anything that had crossed my mind. Although I know that it crosses my daughter's mind all the time. And so whenever I had heard about it, she was the one that kept telling me, "You should do it. You should do it." And of course, she, I had seen that they were going to do casting calls for children as well, but at a later time, and so she's wanting to do that as well.
Oh my gosh! So I'm still curious now. What was it that finally convinced you to take it on? Throw your hat in the ring. Give it a try.
I don't know. And like I said, it was something my daughter. It's something my daughter wants to do. My daughter's 14 years old, and she's always talking about, I want to go to Hollywood, become a movie star, and just live in California and just become real famous. And so whenever I had mentioned the casting calls, she encouraged me. She was like, "Yeah, you should do it. Maybe if you do it, then we can move to California before I get there." Before I get up in that age.
She had her plan already laid out. I'm going to be the next Irene Bedard or Tantu Cardinal.
Yes.
And the story itself is quite tragic. We spoke with the author of the book last year, I think it was. And I remember seeing this in old black and white movie about the FBI, and one of their big cases was to find the murderers involved. Now these were guys who were coming in and marrying an Osage woman, and then getting on into the wills or the whatever, and then inheriting the property after the person died and becoming multimillionaires. That was the basis for the whole film. Were you familiar with that story at all? I mean, here in Oklahoma, it seemed like we would be, but not necessarily. But how about your case?
I've heard it here and there, but no, I'm not real familiar with it. And then, whenever I did go to the casting call, I've told a lot of my family, and they were asking me, "Well, do you know anything about them?" And I thought to myself, "Well, no, I really don't." And so I just kind of, of course, was looking up again the book, just kind of reading what the book was about, and I didn't even realize that. I mean, I knew it was about the Osage and the murders over their land and everything, but I didn't even realize it had anything to do with like the FBI becoming, I guess, what it is now. So yeah, I did get, just reading a little bit on it, I did get a little bit more information out of it, and then a little better understanding of, some of the things that had occurred with the Osage. I do know that they came from like Kansas and Missouri area, I guess, and then we're here on lands, over oil. So I mean, that's what I've learned from just even, like I said, just talking to family. Have you read the book?
Yeah. I live in Glenpool, so
yeah.
It's certainly part of their heritage there, shall we say. Now, have you read the book by any
I
chance?
have not. And after talking to several people there, they told me it's a really good book. It's a really good book. You should look into getting it or getting your hands on it and reading it. I've never been big on reading, so whenever I did, like I said, I did look into it, and it just I do like learning about our people, the Native American heritage, whether it's Creek, Osage, or Navajos or anything. I do like learning, so I do plan on trying to get a hold of the book and actually sitting down reading. One of my cousins had told me that it was difficult for her to read, and she said because it was so graphic. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, if you get a part, you probably might.
Yeah.
I agree with you on. I've never read the book either, but I've read some synopses and a few things like that. And a tragic story. We mentioned it in the movie. White guy was a hero, and the Indians were just the poor victims. And at one scene, they showed this house just blowing up with the family inside. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is part of our history. And wake up, Oklahoma, this is where you came from.
Right.
And was bitter about it for a while, but realized that, let's move on. We have things to do. As a Native person, for you, how important is it for these kind of stories to be told? What do you think?
Oh, man, I think it is very important for these stories to be told. I have 2 girls, 14 and 11-year-old, and they don't know the true stories. They know what's in the school textbook, and that's very minimal. And so, and you see those little kids that, oh, look, there's a real Indian because they got the real regalia on. I'm like, baby, you're a real Indian.
Yeah.
Like, that's you, And so I think it is very important for, people to be educated on what the histories of all Native Americans. And just even myself, I know that there's tons of tribes across the nations, and some of them I've never heard of. We're working at CFSA, our director there, she's taught me more and more about other tribes, and again, tribes I've never even heard of. So, I learn a lot, and I'm getting up there and I'm still learning, so getting up there in age and I'm still learning, and I absolutely am interested in learning about it.
Well, I agree with you, and I echo those sentiments. I'm really getting old and still discovering new stuff about our own people. Now, you're not part of that industry at the moment.
Right.
But what are your thoughts on seeing more of our own people portraying roles in film and movie and TV? Us being us for a change instead of what we call red face or brown face.
Right. I think that's good that, that they, whenever I found out that they were looking for, Native Americans, I thought, wow, they're actually looking for Native American people to play Native American roles, which is good. And again, because, you still see some shows or something that, they have people dressed up as Native Americans. And again, those might be older movies or TV shows or something, but I just think I think it's good to get more Native people on TV and to play those roles. Right.
I grew up on watching a lot of stuff, Anthony Quinn as Crazy Horse, or Chuck Connors as Geronimo or something like that. I'm like, oh, that's cool, look, they're showing Indian. And then later on, as I became a young man, I became more concerned that, hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Those are supposed to be Apaches. What are they doing wearing all this buckskin in the desert, and wearing, the headbands and stuff. Right. That ain't any Apaches that I know.
Right.
Now, as you were standing in line, I guess, presumably you would stand in line, what was going through your mind as you saw these other people, and then did you get a chance to talk with them?
There was a few I did talk to or just join in small conversations with, but for the most part, I kept to myself because there are so many people, and what was going through my mind is, dang, I hope I at least get a call back. There were tons of people, and I know that even I think it was a few days before, they did casting calls in Oklahoma City. I had heard that they did some in Ponca City, and so I just kept thinking, man, I don't even know if I'll even get a call back because there's so many Native Americans there. And then one of the top things that they were absolutely looking for was you to be an Osage Native American or able to speak the language or even sing the hymns. So, and again, there were quite a bit of people. I was in line for 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, 3 hours. My girls were there with me. My sister was there with me. My sister also had taken part in trying to, at least be an extra. And so majority of the time I was just trying to entertain my girls. They're getting super tired, restless, bored, everything else. And
cranky.
But yeah, cranky. And as we're going along, I see more and more natives, long, pretty, black hair, tall, good figures and everything. And here I am just standing here trying to pull the tangles out of my hair, make sure I look decent with my t-shirt and jeans on. But
the real Indians. Forget these Hollywood stereotypes.
Right. And so, I just thought, well, if I could get at least a call back for an extra, I'd be content with that. I mean, even if I don't, there were a lot of potential there. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of potential there. Yeah, there were some others that, I in my head, it was kind of questionable.
Yeah.
Well, do you know that this is for a Native American part? Blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah. So, I mean, but
no aspersions cast, folks. But you see a lot of that. When you finally got past the door and went in, what happened? What was the procedure?
When we finally got up to the front. Okay, so when we register, they give us a paper, and they have us fill out that paper. So then we're waiting in line for 3 hours. Then we get up front, and they have us register again online. So everything that we registered was everything on that paper. And then once we did that, we had to stand in another line, which was not even a minute long, to be sure they got all our full measurements: head, neck, chest, waist, legs, inseam. All that, and then from there we moved us along, and then they took headshot and full body shot, and they said, okay, you're done. It was a matter of minutes when we got to the front and to get out. And they're like, okay, we'll do callbacks. That lady did say they'll do callbacks soon. She didn't give me like an exact date or time, and she said, so if you're selected, you'll receive a call from us.
Right. Did you have any, did they make you read anything?
No, they did not make us read anything. And that's what I was, as we were getting closer, I was getting nervous about. Are they going to make us read an Osage line? I don't know those things.
I don't speak Osage. I barely speak Creek.
Right? Anyway, no, they didn't ask us if, when we got through there, again, on the registration part, it had a small questionnaire and asked if we were Osage, could speak, sing, any of that, but they didn't ask us to read anything or rehearse a line or anything like that.
Let me take this a step further. Did they ask you to do anything? Did you notice anything or hear that you kind of objected to or think, no, I'm not going to do that kind of thing?
No, I didn't hear anything like that. Again, on that questionnaire, that registration form, they had a small questionnaire that asked, can you, I think it said, are you capable of driving a standard? Are you able to, are you able to, ride a horse, sing the hymns, questions like that. And then in that questionnaire, I just remember thinking, no, I can't ride a horse. No, I can't sing Osage. Standard, yeah, somewhat. And, and so on and so on. But, there wasn't nothing that in that questionnaire part that made me feel like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not something I want to do.
Did it make you feel more comfortable then that none of this objectionable kind of stuff was there?
It did. It made me feel a little bit, better. I'm like, okay, this is stuff that I can learn. I'm willing to learn. If they need me to do that, I'm willing to learn it. I'm glad there's nothing in there that's gonna, make me do something that I'm not happy to do. I don't want to do. I definitely don't want to portray, Native Americans as people that they're not. And so that's what I was glad, because, I don't know. From my understanding, all this happened in 1920s. I don't know. I was born 1980s. So, going back even, 40 plus years, whatever, I don't know how things were done back then. But, again, I'm always willing to learn. But I definitely if it was something that I felt was just not right, then I definitely wouldn't do it.
Well,
I mean,
as far as being 40 years ago, I could probably tell you. Now, can you ride a horse?
No.
Sarah, folks, we don't all ride horses. It's been a long time since I've been in the saddle and been saddle sore, but I always liked it. As perhaps any other opportunities come up, do you think maybe if you get this one, could this lead to something possibly? But if you don't, what happens?
Oh yeah, I would definitely. If I got a call back and this led, can you do this? Can you do that? I would definitely take the opportunity to do it. Again, and I know, my girls, they're my biggest supporters. I do everything for them, so I know that they want to see me succeed too. So they'd be super happy if I did too. So.
Do you have any Indian role models that are actors?
That are actors? I do like Martin Sensmeyer. I do like Martin Sensmeyer. He is pretty on the eye.
And that's legitimate.
And I think I can't remember what it was. I think he started out as a just like a model, and I came across the picture, and so I started following him on Instagram, and then eventually I seen he was in The Magnificent Seven, and I was like, he got a role in the movie. I was like, that is awesome. And then next thing I know, he's, I see his face all over social media, and I know when he had a Facebook, I sent him a Facebook friend request, and he accepted it. And this was when he just did modeling. So I was like, yes. But then whenever he was beginning to get bigger, I think he took his Facebook down and has like a just like a public page. Well,
I've seen that happen to a couple of different people. Not that it's bad, but I understand that as this thing builds and grows and you become more popular, a lot more people want a piece of you, of your time or whatever else, and you just can't take it all. I mean, sometimes you just say, well, that's nice, but I kind of got to do this other thing first. All right, well, we're going to wrap this up here and try and get out with a couple of community announcements, but do you think that there might be a callback? Do you?
From what I heard was that they started doing callbacks that following day, and I can't remember where I had seen it, but I had seen it on something that majority of the callbacks went to Osage people, and that's understandable, and also a lot of Pawnee.
Northern Southern Plains tribes.
So, and again, that's understandable too.
Yeah, well, Erica, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing that. It's been a delight to talk with you. We wish you well in this career, and tell the girls to take it easy on Mom there. All right, you have a good one here.
Thank you.
All right, now we are going to run through these announcements real quick. There's only a couple of them here, so we can do something. First of all, the Christmas Carnival is coming up December 6th. Now, you want to check that one out. And where are we here? Mvskoke Dome, Claude Cox Omniplex. It's from 3 to 8 on December 6th. You can do some shopping there, folks. A reintegration program is looking for support and help. If you're interested or you have a question, you might want to call them 918-549-2620. Okay, it's the time to clean out your closet. Mvskoke Nation Youth Council Clothing Drive is accepting gently used and new jackets, sweatshirts, hoodies, and shoes in grades 1 through 12. And hats and gloves and scarves for elders. Now, this is the time of year when you might want to think about sharing these things because they are appreciated by those who receive them. And you make yourself feel pretty good about spreading the correct spirit. Now, their donations are accepted until December the 14th, and you can take those to the Mvskoke Nation Youth Services Office, and donated items will be given to students at the Eufaula Dormitory and the Creek Nation Elderly Nutrition Program. So if you have any questions, 549-2557. That does it for us this week on the Mvskoke Radio. We want to say Mado Mabo Hedgetscut. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.